Hello again, I'm Stephen Jerome, and I'm going to continue reading from my third novel, The London Year. This is part 54. The Christmas and the Christmas rush and the Boxing Day events of Terry meeting Tessa's family has passed, and now back to work on the 27th, an early start to Harrod's sale days that would extend the chaos well into January. In other words, there was no relief in sight except Sebastian's New Year's Eve party. The build-up had its own exciting momentum. None of us could believe our luck. We'd all seen the guest list and knew it would be one of London's coolest events. That we were included meant that it would be the event of our season, too. Gracie said there'd be paparazzi. The wait staff would be models from Sebastian's new modeling agency. It all makes sense, Gracie said again, which was her way of pinching herself to make sure the sudden burst of glamour and opportunities were really real. There was even an ironic twist. That which was serving Gracie not at all as an actress was aiding her newfound direction. Tess told me that the one thing sustaining Gracie's theater dreams, the ones that weren't giving her birth, was her near photographic memory. She could learn pages of dialogue in triple quick time and used it as a selling point to every director for whom she auditioned. Sebastian had caught on to this right away as they were going over the ever-changing guest list. All week, Gracie would come home, dropping names of the people who had sent RSVPs. She seemed to be taking the initiative, managing more and more of Sebastian's PR affairs. Mention of his name, not to mention the actual FaceTime drop-ins, became a curiosity we almost got used to. But mostly, Sebastian spent his time upstairs with Finn. He was working on Sebastian's portrait for his new restaurant. But my queries in that regard were firmly discouraged. "But the portrait's going to be big," Gracie said excitedly. After seeing the wall-sized collage in his studio upstairs, I wasn't surprised. Then I wondered how they'd even get a canvas that big out the door, let alone around the narrow turns of the stairs. I decided it wasn't my problem. Meanwhile, there was no relief at Harrod's. To be sure, most of the post-Christmas, pre-New Year's crowds weren't coming for frosted food, but they kept coming just the same. The food halls were always an attraction. And by the time I came home from work, all I wanted to do was shower off the kinetic overload. One day I stepped out of the bathroom, hair still wet, just a towel around my waist, when Finn bounded up the stairs past me, followed by Sebastian. "Oh," I exclaimed immediately, followed by the English "sorry for everything, sorry." My surprise, combined with an instinctual reaction to cover myself, must have made a comical picture, because they both laughed. "Just heading up," Finn said, not slowing his pace, but Sebastian lingered for a moment. He gave me a playful up and down and leaned in close. "You need something to wear," he whispered, brushing my nipple with the back of his fingers. He didn't wait for my response, but followed Finn up. I was left standing with a slightly distracted sense of amazement. One of the most electrifying new faces, as they called him, in England was suddenly making himself at home, quite at home, I'd say, in our flat. Would wonders never cease? I waited until I heard Finn's door close before continuing up to my own room. The weird fact was that we were all suddenly rubbing shoulders and more with someone so famous we all still had to pinch ourselves. That said, the others still had more direct dealings than I did. But there was no ignoring the feeling of specialness, staring face to face, having your nipple touched by one of the most famously beautiful people in the world. Gracie kept saying how it all made sense. I guess she thought it also made sense when she introduced Sebastian to Colin, the landlord. It was only a matter of time before their paths would cross, and they clearly had mutual interests in real estate and property development. Once, when I was in the kitchen making tea, I heard Colin chatting with Gracie in the sitting room about something they must have been discussing earlier with Sebastian. I was barely paying attention when I heard Gracie catch herself. There was a pause as if she realized she was talking out of turn. Then Colin continued explaining things Gracie said she didn't understand, and he always obliged by explaining. But after that little moment, I noticed Gracie was more careful with her words, though never short of questions. Of course, I talked all this out with Tess, didn't mention the nipple business. I wondered if there was a place for me in all this benefactory. "Leaves from the money tree fall on those standing under it," I said. She rolled her eyes at my little homily, but was of two minds as to my point. "Why don't you like him?" I asked. She couldn't quite say. Yes, she agreed it all looked good from the outside, but the swiftness of things bothered her. Gracie was changing before her eyes, she said, becoming more purposeful and at the same time more distant, less chatty. How was that a bad thing? She's growing up. Finn was always hungry, which made him a too easy mark. Artists required patrons, I would rebut. Based on what I told her about the barely started canvas I'd seen, we both wondered if Finn would ever finish the ever larger commission for Sebastian, but Gracie had it on Sebastian's good authority that his portrait was indeed underway. None of us really knew for certain. Not only was Finn's room off limits, but so was any mention of whatever he was doing, in or outside the flat. He knew I'd been up there after the break-in, but even mentioning that seemed awkward, as if I'd seen something I wasn't meant to. He did, however, have good manners enough to modulate his umbrage, knowing the girl's room and mine had been totally upturned, and for some reason his had not. The mystery surrounding Finn was only increasing. As for the TV in the sitting room, which was stolen, it was hardly missed. It had never been part of anyone's life the way television was in America. Sometimes TV shows were all Americans talked about, one common denominator in a country of vast cultural diversity. My knowledge of British television came more from U.S. airings of Upstairs, Downstairs and Monty Python, and my time with the Langers watching their new color TV. Our grudge was more about the violation. Mostly, Finn said he hoped the bastards who broke in would burn in fucking hell. Okay, I'm going to stop there. We're going to continue with part 55. My goodness. So again, thank you for watching. Pick up a copy of the Londoner. These talks are minus the juicy bits. Anyway, stay tuned. Thank you for watching. Part 55 coming up. Thank you.